Beneath the luminous branches of the Tree of Life, hidden in the folds of Jewish mysticism, lies a realm of distortion, inversion, and darkness. A place where divine energy has fallen, fragmented, and become something wholly other. This is the domain of the Qlippoth, a name that means shells or husks, the cosmic remnants of a shattered divinity, the husks of unbalanced judgment and severed light. Hello and welcome, brothers arcane, to the Dark Primordial. I'm your host, Ken Schroer, and within the Kabbalistic tradition, God is not merely a distant creator, but the very fabric of reality, the infinite presence that sustains existence. Yet, from this very divinity emerges its shadow, a counterpart that embodies all that is corrupt, chaotic, and impure. How can this be? How does a benevolent God allow such forces to persist? Is evil an illusion, or is it as real as holiness itself? To answer these questions, we must traverse the deep currents of Kabbalah, from the cryptic passages of the Zohar to the revolutionary doctrines of Isaac Luria, whose visions of shattered vessels and fallen sparks reshape the understanding of good and evil. Light your incense, grab your snack, and join me as we descend into the abyss, navigate the dark corridors of the Sitra Achra, the other side, and unravel the terrifying implications of a cosmos in which divinity itself is fractured. To understand the Qlippoth, one must first understand its parent tradition, Kabbalah, the mystical heart of Judaism. Unlike the esoteric teachings of Jewish law and ethics, Kabbalah delves into the unseen, into the divine architecture of reality itself. It seeks to unveil the hidden structure of creation, to trace the flow of divine energy, and to comprehend the mechanisms that govern the cosmos. But with this knowledge comes a terrifying revelation. Within the very essence of divinity lies a shadow, a fracture, a force that exists in opposition to holiness. Kabbalah, the mystical heart of Judaism, reveals a shocking truth. Within the divine itself lies a shadow. The Qlippoth aren't just demons or realms of hellfire. They are the unavoidable consequence of creation, fragments of divine energy that never fully manifested. The origins of Kabbalah are veiled in mystery, while its foundations are found in the Merkavah mysticism of the early rabbinic period. Visions of Ezekiel's chariot and ascensions through the heavens. It was in the Middle Ages that Kabbalah crystallized into a sophisticated metaphysical system. Central to this system was the concept of the Sephirot, the 10 emanations of God through which divine energy flows into the world. Unlike the distant, abstract God of traditional theology, Kabbalah presents a divinity that is dynamic, constantly unfolding, revealing, and contracting itself. And yet, this process of emanation is inherently fragile. Wherever light is directed, a shadow is cast. The Qlippoth, then, are the byproduct of divine emanation, the residues left behind when holiness fails to fully manifest. Early Kabbalists envisioned them as cosmic impurities, lingering in the lower realms of existence, feeding off of the remnants of divine light. They are the echoes of divine energy that has lost its direction, the husks that remain when the true essence has departed. They are not merely evil in a moral sense. They are deformities in the very structure of reality, realms of incompletion, where divine energy has stagnated. This idea of cosmic imperfection is embedded in the very first lines of Genesis. The Hebrew text describes the primordial state of creation, and the earth was without form, tohu, and void, bohu, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, tohu. Genesis 1:2. The words tohu and bohu do not simply refer to physical chaos. They hint at a pre-existent disorder, a realm of instability that preceded structured creation. To the early Kabbalists, this was the first glimpse of the Qlippoth, a primordial state of broken divinity, a residue of something that had gone wrong in the unfolding of existence. It is a place where divine order had not yet taken hold, where chaotic forces remained unbalanced and raw. The earliest Kabbalistic texts, such as the Sefer Yetzirah and the Bahir, describe creation as an act of divine limitation, a process where God withdraws its infinite presence to make space for the finite world. This concept, later expanded into the doctrine of Tzimtzum by Isaac Luria, suggests that creation itself is an act of concealment. God's light is not fully revealed, but instead filtered through the vessels of the Sephirot. But this concealment is not without consequences. Just as shadows emerge when light is obstructed, so too do the Qlippoth arise when divine energy is constricted. Evil, in this framework, is not an autonomous force nor a direct creation of God. It is a consequence of the limits of existence, a byproduct of the process by which the infinite attempts to manifest within the finite. The more constrained and dense the divine light becomes, the greater the risk that it will become trapped, unable to flow freely. The Qlippoth, then, are places where divine energy has calcified, where it has become stuck in a lower, corrupted form. One of the earliest Kabbalistic interpretations of evil emerges from the notion that din, judgment, and chesed, mercy, must be held in perfect balance. The Sephirot are not merely aspects of God. They are the mechanisms by which divine energy is distributed, ensuring that creation remains in harmony. But when judgment becomes too rigid, too harsh, it breaks away from the flow of mercy. It becomes unyielding, an oppressive force that strangles the light rather than guiding it. This imbalance is the source of the Qlippoth.
Early Kabbalists saw the Qlippoth as cosmic waste, spiritual impurities lingering at the edges of existence. These husks of lost divinity don't just disappear. They linger, they fester, and they hunger.
Qlippoth are the spiritual waste of creation, but waste does not remain inert. It seeks to consume, to corrupt, to drag the higher energies downward into its stagnant abyss. As the medieval Kabbalists refined their cosmology, the concept of the Qlippoth became increasingly associated with demonic forces, entities that embodied the distorted energies of the fallen Sephirot. These were not the demons of folklore, nor the rebellious angels of Christian tradition, but spiritual parasites, entities that clung to the heels of holiness, waiting for moments of weakness to infiltrate and corrupt. The Zohar, the most influential work of Kabbalah, describes these entities as arising from the left-hand side of the divine, the realm of Gevurah, severity, when it is unbalanced by chesed, mercy. This gave rise to the idea of the Sitra Achra, the other side, a shadow realm that exists alongside holiness, feeding off of its light. The Sitra Achra is not a separate world, but a mirror world, one that reflects holiness in an inverted, distorted manner. Thus, the foundation of the Qlippoth was set. It was not simply a collection of demons or hellish realms, but a metaphysical necessity, a dark twin to divinity itself. As long as divine energy flows into creation, there will always be excess, always be residue, always be fragments of holiness that fail to ascend and instead sink into darkness. And yet, within these very fragments, lie the seeds of redemption, for even the Qlippoth contain divine sparks, remnants of the original light that fell from the shattered vessels of creation. This sets the stage for the greatest drama in Kabbalistic thought, the act of tikkun, restoration, the cosmic process by which humanity reclaims these lost sparks and restores them to their source. But this process will not be easy, for the Qlippoth will not surrender their stolen light willingly. They are the shells that encase divine energy, and they will resist being broken. This is where the mystic, the Kabbalist, and the seeker must tread carefully. To engage with the Qlippoth is to descend into the depths of the shadow world, to confront not only the external forces of corruption, but also the inner forces of distortion within oneself. For just as the divine structure of the Sephirot exists within the microcosm of the soul, so too does the Qlippoth. The forces of chaos, of unbalanced judgment, of unchecked desire and wrath, they are not merely cosmic abstractions, but living aspects of the psyche, shadows that must be understood, confronted, and ultimately transformed. The Qlippoth, then, are not merely a theological curiosity. They are a living reality, a presence within the very structure of existence. They are the forces that drag us into darkness, the obstacles that cloud our perception, the illusions that keep us bound. But they are also the forge of transformation, for in confronting them, in understanding the nature of the shadow, we come closer to the very light they once contained. And so the battle begins, not between good and evil, but between awareness and ignorance, between integration and fragmentation. The descent into the Qlippoth is not a fall, but an initiation, a journey into the depths, where even in darkness, the remnants of divine light still flicker, waiting to be reclaimed. The origins of the Qlippoth lie in a catastrophe so profound that its consequences ripple through every layer of existence.
Creation wasn't a perfect act. It was a cosmic disaster. The divine light meant to shape reality was too intense, shattering its vessels and scattering fragments of holiness into the abyss. These broken shards became the Qlippoth.
This event, known as Shivirat HaKalim, the shattering of the vessels, was not merely a mythic moment in time, but a continuous reality that shapes the very structure of existence. Through the teachings of Isaac Luria, this concept became the foundation of what would later be called Lurianic Kabbalah. Luria introduced a vision of creation unlike anything that had come before, a vision where divine perfection was compromised, where holiness itself was wounded, and where the task of restoring the cosmos fell upon humanity. This restoration, known as Tikkun Olam, was not a passive waiting for redemption, but an active struggle to reclaim the lost sparks of divinity. But this struggle would not be easy, for the divine light that once radiated in unity had become ensnared in Qlippothic shells, trapped in a realm where holiness is inverted, distorted, and corrupted. According to Luria, before the world was formed, only the Ein Sof, the infinite God, existed. But in order to create a world where beings could have free will, where holiness could manifest in diverse forms, Ein Sof had to contract itself, withdrawing from part of itself to make room for creation. This process, called Tzimtzum, created a vacated space, Makom Panui, into which divine light could flow, forming the Sephirot, the vessels meant to structure and distribute divine energy. But something went terribly wrong. The lower Sephirot, unable to withstand the force of divine light, shattered, scattering fragments of holiness across existence. These broken shards, still infused with divine energy, fell into the abyss, sinking into the lowest realms of creation. Here, they became ensnared within the Qlippoth, which formed like hardened shells around them, trapping their light. What had been a pure flow of divine energy had now become corrupted, twisted into forces that opposed holiness rather than emanating it. This was the birth of the Qlippoth, not as external demonic entities, but as the very remnants of divine failure, the byproduct of a universe unable to hold the full intensity of God's presence. The Qlippoth were not created by God in the way the Sephirot were. They were the unwanted consequences of creation itself, the lingering residue of a divine catastrophe.
The Qlippoth don't exist in some distant hell. They are the shadow cast by divinity itself. Kabbalah calls this the Sitra Achra, the other side, where divine attributes are twisted, corrupted, and turned against themselves.
Holiness in Kabbalah is defined by unity. It is the harmonious merging of divine attributes, the balance of Chesed, mercy, and Gevurah, judgment, the unbroken flow of energy through the Sephirot. But where holiness is unity, the Sitra Achra is division. It is the realm where the Sephirot's energies are torn apart, where divine attributes become unbalanced, exaggerated, and corrupted. In this way, the Qlippoth are not the opposite of the Sephirot, but their reflection in a broken mirror, where the light of God is refracted into grotesque and chaotic forms. This inversion manifests in the structure of a Qlippothic tree, sometimes called the Tree of Death, a dark counterpart to the Tree of Life. Each Qlippa or singular form of Qlippoth corresponds to a Sephirah, but in an entropic, diseased, or perverted form. Instead of divine wisdom, there is deceit. Instead of harmonious love, there is lust. Instead of divine rulership, there is tyranny and discord. The Qlippoth are not simply evil. They are corruptions of what was once divine. For example, Thaumiel, the Qlippa of Keter, represents division instead of unity, a realm of conflict where opposing rulers wage eternal war. Gamaliel, the Qlippa of Yesod, takes the foundation of creative energy and twists it into perversion, deception, and exploitation. Satariel, the Qlippa of Bina, turns divine understanding into obscurity, manipulation, and the suppression of knowledge. In essence, the Qlippoth are what happens when divine attributes become isolated from the greater whole, when they are cut off from the source that gives them meaning. Over time, the Qlippoth became associated with specific demonic figures, beings that personified the fallen aspects of divine energy. Among these, 3 stand at the apex of the Sitra Akra. Lilith, the dark mother of the Qlippoth, the embodiment of unrestrained sexuality, chaos, and rebellion. Once a consort of Adam, she became a figure of darkness, presiding over the corrupted aspects of Yesod. Samael, the dark twin of Metatron, the poison of God, a being of harsh judgment and deception, ruling over the severed realm of Gevurah. He is both accuser and tempter, the force that twists divine justice into tyranny. Asmodeus, a demon of materialism, excess and illusion, presiding over the lower realms where divine splendor has been reduced to empty vanity. These figures are not merely demons in the traditional sense, they are forces of inversion, reflections of divine energies that have been twisted by separation. Their role is not simply to oppose God, but to feed on the divine sparks that remain trapped in the Qlippothic realms, seeking to prevent their return to holiness. Because the Qlippoth contain trapped divine light, they are not beyond redemption. The task of tikkun, restoration, is to extract the divine sparks from the husks that imprison them, to bring fragmented holiness back into unity. Every righteous act, every moment of wisdom, every ethical choice liberates a spark, tipping the balance away from the Sitra Akra and back toward divine harmony. But this process is not merely cosmic. It is deeply psychological and personal. The Qlippoth do not only exist in distant mystical realms, they exist within us, within our unconscious fears, within our compulsions, within the parts of ourselves that are cut off from awareness. To engage with the Qlippoth is to confront the darkness within, to recognize the forces that seek to distort and enslave us. And yet, there are those who do not seek to redeem the Qlippoth, but instead embrace them. Mystics of the left-hand path, who descend into the abyss not to restore divine unity, but to harness its fallen power. This is the path of the Qlippothic initiate, the one who dares to walk into the broken realms and claim them as their own. Thus, the struggle between Tikkun and the Qlippoth is not simply a battle between good and evil. It is a battle between integration and fragmentation, between awakening and entrapment, between divine unity and cosmic entropy. The vessels are shattered, the sparks remain trapped. The Qlippoth hunger. Will you ascend, or will you be devoured?
As we descend deeper into the mysteries of the Qlippoth, consider what it means to confront the shadow. Within the cosmos, within history, and within yourself. This is more than mysticism. It is an invitation to explore the hidden forces that shape reality, to acknowledge the darkness without fear, and to emerge transformed. If you're finding value in this journey through the esoteric and the forbidden, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this with fellow seekers who are ready to peer beyond the veil. And if you'd like to carry a reminder of this knowledge into your daily practice, visit the Dark Primordial's Etsy and Shopify stores by clicking the link below. There you'll find handcrafted talismans, ritual implements, and occult artifacts, each one infused with intention, designed to assist in shadow work, spiritual ascent, and the unlocking of hidden wisdom. Now, let us return to the abyss, where the shattered light still flickers, waiting to be reclaimed.
Though the Qlippoth originated within Kabbalah as a mystical explanation for the existence of evil and spiritual imbalance, their influence has expanded far beyond their original context. Over the past several centuries, the concept of the Qlippoth has been reinterpreted, reshaped, and integrated into modern occult traditions, particularly within the Western esoteric tradition, Hermetic Kabbalah, left-hand path mysticism, and Jungian psychology. No longer confined to the theological framework of Judaism, the Qlippoth have become a symbol of initiation, personal transformation, and the confrontation of the shadow self. The modern understanding of the Qlippoth is no longer simply about cosmic imbalance or divine retribution. It has become a map of the psyche, a descent into the depths of the unconscious mind, and a means of harnessing the very forces that traditional Kabbalah sought to overcome.
Once seen as spiritual impurities, the Qlippoth have become something more. Gateways to hidden knowledge. Modern occultists don't just fear them, they seek them out, using them as paths to personal power and transformation.
During the Renaissance, Kabbalah began to merge with Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, and Christian mysticism, resulting in the development of what is now known as Hermetic Kabbalah. This westernized version of Kabbalah, while heavily inspired by Jewish mystical thought, took on a life of its own, incorporating alchemy, astrology, and ceremonial magic. By the 19th and 20th centuries, occult orders such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Theosophical Society, and the Ordo Templi Orientis had reinterpreted Kabbalistic teachings in ways that were no longer strictly Jewish. The Sephirotic Tree of Life became a foundational symbol in Western mysticism, used as a map for spiritual ascent. But if the Tree of Life represented illumination, where did its shadow fall? Some practitioners began to speculate that just as the Sephirot led to enlightenment, the Qlippoth formed a path of descent into spiritual darkness. Instead of avoiding or banishing the Qlippoth, some occultists saw them as necessary obstacles on the path to transcendence. In this interpretation, the Qlippoth were not simply evil in the traditional sense, but represented aspects of reality and the self that had to be confronted, integrated, or transformed. The Golden Dawn was one of the first modern esoteric orders to acknowledge the Qlippothic tree as the dark reflection of the Sephirotic structure. The Golden Dawn's initiatory system placed great emphasis on balancing and transcending opposing forces within the psyche, including those represented by the Qlippoth. However, direct engagement with the Qlippoth was largely discouraged, as they were viewed as realms of extreme imbalance and dangerous spiritual forces. The left-hand path refers to esoteric traditions that embrace self-deification, personal power, and transgression of religious taboos. In contrast to right-hand path traditions that seek to unite with divine will, the left-hand path often encourages practitioners to embrace autonomy, rebellion, and the harnessing of darker forces. It was within this framework that the Qlippoth began to be viewed as a legitimate path of initiation. Instead of seeing the Qlippoth as obstacles to be overcome, left-hand path practitioners began viewing them as necessary trials, gateways to power, wisdom, and individuation. The concept of crossing the abyss, a key idea in Aleister Crowley's Thelema, is often associated with the journey through the Qlippothic realms. In Crowley's Thelemic system, the initiate must confront Corazon, a chaotic and deceptive force that dwells within the abyss, the great chasm between the lower and higher spheres of existence. Though Crowley did not directly equate Corazon with the Qlippoth, later occultists drew parallels between them, seeing Corazon as a representation of Qlippothic consciousness, chaotic, deceptive, and yet essential to spiritual transcendence. Several modern occult systems have taken Qlippothic initiation even further, treating the journey through the Qlippothic tree as a path to personal godhood. This is particularly evident in the Draconian tradition, the Temple of Set, and the works of esoteric authors such as Kenneth Grant and Thomas Carlson. Practitioners of Qlippothic magic engage in rituals designed to invoke, harness, or integrate the forces of the Qlippothic spheres. Each Qlippa is seen as a trial, an initiatory challenge that forces the magician to confront repressed aspects of themselves. The initiatory process often follows a pattern of destruction, confrontation, and rebirth, where old identities are stripped away and new aspects of self are revealed. Beyond their mystical significance, the Qlippoth have also been reinterpreted through the lens of depth psychology, particularly in the works of Carl Jung and later psychoanalytic thinkers.
Jung called it the shadow self, everything we repress, deny, or fear within ourselves. The Qlippoth are not just cosmic forces. They're the parts of our own psyche we refuse to face.
From a psychological perspective, the Qlippoth represent aspects of the human psyche that have been severed from conscious awareness. These may include fears, suppressed desires, unresolved traumas, and destructive compulsions, aspects of the self that when ignored grow in power and influence. Just as the Qlippoth are the shells of broken divine light, so too are the unintegrated aspects of the shadow husks of the fractured human psyche. In Jungian psychology, the process of individuation, becoming a fully realized self, requires a confrontation with the shadow. Those who refuse to engage with their shadow risk being unconsciously controlled by it. Likewise, in mystical traditions, those who fail to acknowledge and integrate the Qlippothic aspects of themselves risk being consumed by them. For example, the Qlippa of Gamaliel, associated with sexual perversion and illusion, can represent unconscious compulsions and repressed desires. When acknowledged and integrated, the individual gains control over their sexuality and creative energy. But when ignored, these forces can manifest destructively, either as repression and guilt or as uncontrollable obsession. Similarly, the Qlippoth of Thaumiel, associated with division and conflict, can represent the ego's need for dominance and separation from others. When integrated, it allows for strong individual identity without falling into narcissism. When ignored, it can manifest as isolation, delusions of grandeur, or unchecked aggression. Thus, the journey through the Qlippoth can be understood as a psychological process of integrating one's shadow self, rather than rejecting or suppressing it. Kabbalah's view of evil is not one of simple opposition. The Qlippoth are not separate from God. They are distortions of divinity, broken manifestations of the same divine light that animates holiness. Evil, then, is not the enemy. It is the catalyst for transformation. Through tikkun, through self-awareness, through the reclamation of divine sparks, one does not destroy the Qlippoth, one redeems them. And in that redemption, the shattered world is made whole once more.